All right, thank you for that. I'm conscious if I wait to the very end, people who had burning issues may not remember some of them relating to the early two groups. So what I'm going to do is just check whether, excuse me, dying here, whether there's any particular burning issues on either early years intervention or food that people absolutely, although they weren't on that table, would want not to lose sight of. And I'm going to ask if there aren't any, to ask our academics if they wanted to give any immediate response on any of those thoughts. But are there any burning issues on either of those two topics? Yep.
Yes, at this table we discussed the contradiction about having cafes and parks to attract people in, so that you take more exercise, kids would play, it feel safe and so on. But when you went into the cafe, they were selling nothing but junk food. You know, there's a failure here to join up policy in these two areas.
All right. And is there anything our speakers would like to add?
It's just very good to be hearing that what we're getting is very evidence-based, actually. The points from town handlers and so on, particularly on food, is absolutely evidence-based.
Great. Can we move on then? The group that was tackling the increased access to physical activity. Where are you, chaps? Yeah.
Hi. We were looking, we kind of wanted to get away from the idea that you had to go to a particular place to be physically sort of active. And we were sort of thinking about if you're frightened to step out into your street, then you're never going to get anywhere. So we started talking about street safety and things. A particular measure we thought we could really act on was perhaps the mayor taking a champion role in terms of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which affects the people or areas we know like that these places are more hazardous and things. So that was a big action we had. And then we also had some things around evaluation as well, which we thought right from the beginning if the strategy could look at what information we want to gather collectively and help make us more consistent, make our evaluations more consistent, and perhaps lobby the health sector to take evaluations from community groups a bit more seriously.
Okay. And the other group? Yep.
Yeah, we had discussions in this group about the need to change the ideas about physical activity and sport from the way it's always been. Something similar to something she mentioned initially is about taking physical activity out of the confined space of the gym and moving out into the park. But then that comes with some safety concerns and I think a key suggestion is about the need to have what we call healthy parks and one scheme. Something like that would get several boroughs, several councils working to make their parks really healthy for the children to use. And we also talked about the need to have all facilities, and we think the mayor could be involved in this, have all facilities in London. I mean, future planning for all facilities, having them physical activity checked, however that can work out. So that is built into the plan, the design of all future projects in London.
Thank you. And then moving on to tackling obesity through the workplace, which, yeah, thank you.
One of the main things that came up, and actually everything that's been said so far links into the workplace, because every person you've talked about links into the workplace, whether they work there, whether they access it, whether their children go to a place where people teach them. So workplace seems to be important. They're looking at the numbers and didn't see that important as a group. However, the main thing that comes up is cost. We have to convince workplace that actually to invest in people's health is more economically viable than to forget it. So that was the main thing that came up as a sort of prime issue, but linked into that, it was about sort of looking at partnerships. Everything that's been suggested so far can't work on its own. So here, in this building, we cannot have healthy status unless procurements are being healthy. Everybody in this building is being healthy, the suppliers are being healthy. So we're looking at partnerships in terms of private business, public looking at both community and voluntary sector. We came up with some nice ideas. Manchester is doing some fantastic work, which might be worth listening to, on incentivising health. So incentivising health, like the point system, which we currently probably all use at Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Boots, you name it. This all links back to cost. Is it cheaper to pay people to be healthy than to treat them for being unhealthy? And I think lastly, one of the things we're thinking about is, do we need some kind of health charter? So we have a system in terms of health and safety in the point system. Well, can companies buy into that as well? So you have a healthy workforce. Would you want to work in a place which has 5-star rating? They care for their employees. Some people may not think workplace is important, but in London we have 60 to 85% of adults working in a workplace. So that's a large percentage of the adult population who also have lots of children. Finally, just to finish up, we must consider all types of workplaces. So not just the large companies, but also the small to medium companies. Those companies who are takeaways, who are serving unhealthy foods to people who are buying it, but also serving unhealthy foods to people who work for them. So I'm going to finish there.
All right. Was there another obesity in the workplace group?
No.
So then we're moving to obesity within deprived areas.
Okay, so when we were thinking about deprived areas, obviously you will see maps, and there are deprived areas in London, but there are also lots of very mixed areas. So then we fell to thinking about deprived people in these areas, and we wanted to start to look. We know